It was April 3rd, 2005, and it was a warm spring night in Los Angeles, California, and live from the Staples Center, it was WrestleMania 21. And when The Undertaker made his way into the ring that night, he was walking in 12-0 at WrestleMania. Since 1991, he had competed in 12 WrestleMania matches and won every single one of them. And on that night, after surviving an RKO, after surviving interference, after hitting Orton with a tombstone, it became 13-0. It was the night that it became the streak. For 21 years spanning across so many different generations, spanning across so many different eras, the one constant was The Undertaker was undefeated at WrestleMania. It became a tradition that every time The Undertaker stepped into the ring at WrestleMania, the biggest show of the year, the biggest spectacle of the year, he was walking out the winner. It was something that nobody had ever planned, and what started off as a crazy coincidence eventually became one of the most special things in wrestling history. And after 2005, when the streak was truly born, every year it became, is the streak ending? Is The Undertaker finally losing? And the best part was, for our generation, for those that were kids during this time, the streak was such a vital part of our childhoods. We were kids, man. We were like 6, 7, 8 years old, and every year we were getting this magical experience that no kids experienced before us. Sure, the kids in the 90s grew up with The Undertaker winning every year at WrestleMania, but it wasn't like this. We were growing up right at the perfect time along the streak. To us, the streak just became the coolest thing ever. It was something mythical. We were young and we really thought The Undertaker got superpowers at WrestleMania every single year for some reason. Sure, we might see The Undertaker get his ass beat on SmackDown every few months, he might even get injured and destroyed and even go missing for a few months, but we knew when it was time that WrestleMania Taker was different. This was when we would have debates on the playground if the streak was ever going to end. It just became an event. I'll never forget when Taker was going for 15-0 against Batista with the title on the line at WrestleMania 23. At that point, I really wanted Batista to be the one that ended the streak and remained champion. In my little 9-year-old eyes, if anyone was ever gonna do it, it had to be the Animal. But deep down, I knew when it was time, when WrestleMania was on the air and the match was about to go down. Before I even knew that wrestling was scripted, deep down even I knew that Taker wasn't gonna lose at WrestleMania. As the years went by and as we got older, the streak got older as well, and the spectacle just got bigger and bigger. By 2008, the streak was main eventing WrestleMania and Taker was walking out 16-0 with the championship in his hands. In 2009, The Undertaker beat Shawn Michaels to become 17-0 and arguably the greatest WrestleMania match ever. A match that changed the game, a match that was so special and so elite that it set a new standard of what a streak match should be going forward. And it just got to the point where the streak matches were just non-stop classics. 18-0 after the Shawn rematch, 19-0 after beating Triple H. By 2011, even though The Undertaker was 46 years old, every year he was obviously just getting older and older. For some reason, this crackhead was still getting better every single year. The older he got, the better he got. Every year the matches got better, every year the spectacle got better, every year the streak just became even more legendary. Seeing a man defy his age, defy the odds, seeing a man give us these matches that made us so invested in something that we knew was scripted, it was wrestling at its best. Every single year, for those 20 or 30 minutes once a year, nothing else mattered except for the streak. And at WrestleMania 28 in 2012, to go 20-0 at WrestleMania, we got the greatest spectacle that was beyond our imagination. To go 20-0 at WrestleMania, The Undertaker had to beat Triple H in a Hell in a Cell match with Shawn Michaels as the special guest referee. It was the biggest streak match we could have ever imagined, and after 19 WrestleManias, it was probably never gonna get bigger than this. 19 years of build-up, all the hype you could possibly imagine, 3 all-time legends in one ring with the odds stacked up on The Undertaker like never before. And everyone's thought was, if the streak was ever going to end, it had to be in that match. It had to be in the Hell in a Cell against Triple H with Shawn Michaels as the referee. 2 decades in the making, and in that match, Shawn Michaels hit The Undertaker with a sweet chin music that turned into a pedigree, and at that very moment, the world literally stood still. The crowd gasped, and 20 years led to this. 1, 2, no. Taker kicked out of the sweet chin music and the pedigree, and that was the moment where a lot of wrestling fans realized the streak was probably never ever going to end. If Triple H and Shawn Michaels together couldn't end the streak, nothing would ever end it. And against all odds, Taker walked out 20-0. By 2013, the streak was just as big as WrestleMania itself. By 2013, thousands of tickets and pay-per-views were sold every year for WrestleMania just because of the streak. Just because we knew The Undertaker was gonna go out there and go absolutely insane, survive finishers, inflict damage, fly over the ropes, and against all odds, he was going to win. The streak became like a blockbuster movie. There was drama, there's suspense, there's parts where you're like, oh my god, this might be it, this is the end. But deep down you knew that at the end, the good guy was gonna come clutch and he was going to win. It was all a part of the experience, and deep down the fans didn't want the streak to ever end, but we still wanted there to be the drama of there possibly being a chance that it might finally end. And every year when they pushed the limits on these matches, they made the experience that much more special. However, The Undertaker was now 48 years old, and without a doubt, these matches were taking a huge toll on his body. By 2013, Taker had become the streak. He was just a once-a-year attraction, and after another classic with CM Punk that had our hearts stopping and had us tripping, The Undertaker was now 21-0, something that even in a scripted context sounds insane. And after that match, as Taker posed in MetLife Stadium as he just pushed his body to the limit one more time, everyone knew that he would be back next year at Mania once again, and we knew we would be right back there gathered around the TV one more time for one more streak match with even higher expectations, with fans wanting something even better. But not everything has a happy ending, especially in wrestling. Welcome to 2014. As 2014 arrived and the road to WrestleMania began once again, The Undertaker was back in the company and it was time to go 22-0. This was when the streak was beyond legendary. This was a year that the streak got a hold mode in WWE 2K14. There were DVDs released by this point, there were action figures, magazines, you name it. The streak was bigger than ever. And with a roster with so much talent, there were countless matches the fans wanted. There were rumors that Sting had finally signed the contract and we were gonna get the dream match at WrestleMania. There were even rumors of The Undertaker wanting to take on Daniel Bryan, or maybe it was finally time for Cena to attempt to end the streak. The possibilities were endless, but the WWE knew for months that at WrestleMania 30, it was going to be Brock Lesnar versus The Undertaker. Brock Lesnar was the former UFC champion, the legit badass who left the company, went to UFC and came back an even bigger star, and the WWE thought that Brock versus Taker was the perfect match. The two men who had an amazing feud in 2002, two monsters, two of the most recognizable faces in wrestling, worldwide stars, the two who went face to face at UFC 121 and looked like we're about to legitimately kill each other. It was a match where there was history, a match that was legit, a true badass money match on paper. But that's just on paper, because in reality, nobody really wanted this match. Brock Lesnar at this point was 4-2 in his return to the company. He had lost his first match against Cena, he had lost to Triple H at the last year's WrestleMania. Of course he was elite, of course he was Brock Lesnar, but the company had truly massacred my boy. As cool as Taker versus Lesnar sounded on paper, at that very time it just wasn't it. Because once again, this was the streak, this was supposed to be magic, this was supposed to be special, this was supposed to make you feel excited for WrestleMania with one match alone. This was 21-0, this was 21 years in the making. This was supposed to be legendary, and a massacred Lesnar who had already lost twice trying to beat The Undertaker just did not feel right, and 99% of the fans, including myself, knew that there was no way that The Undertaker was going to lose. There was no doubt this time, there was no hope, there was no drama. It is impossible to go back to 2014 and look at any published predictions for WrestleMania 30 and find even one person who genuinely believed that Brock Lesnar was going to beat The Undertaker at WrestleMania 30. I never for a second believed that Taker was losing. It never even crossed my mind, and none of my friends did either. The entire build-up, the entire idea of this match just fell off. It truly felt like the company was taking a year off of the streak and this was just a filler match. It felt like one of those episodes of Dragon Ball Z. For the first time in a long time, the streak just didn't have that magic for the match. Fans were already fantasy booking how Taker was gonna go 23-0. But regardless, we still had to get through Lesnar versus Taker first. Quote, when Undertaker loses a streak, it will be his last match, and none of us are ready for that to happen just yet. The streak will grow 22-0. Quote, Taker wins. They've had the 22-0 graphic ready to go since like 17-0. Brock Lesnar does not have a chance here, and if they convince us for a moment that he does, they've achieved a real victory. The streak was not going to end. It was April 6, 2014, and it was a warm spring night in New Orleans, Louisiana, and 70,000 packed the Mercedes-Benz Superdome for WrestleMania 30. It was the first ever WrestleMania after the release of the WWE Network, and it was the night the world stood still. Brock Lesnar made his way out to the ring, and even though it wasn't the most hype match or anything, just like it's always been, The Undertaker's entrance was amazing as usual. We saw caskets with all the names of Taker's Mania opponents, and Taker walked out and he took 7 minutes to get to the ring for his entrance, but if anyone deserved it, it was him. After 21 WrestleMania matches, after bangers and bangers, after making the streak this mythical thing, something that we grew up on, something that generations grew up on, putting his body on the line for 21 matches on the biggest show of the year, it all led to this. It was the last ride and we had no clue. They were in the ring, they were face to face, and the match started, and this was it. They brawled and they went at it right away. It was two monsters doing their thing, and even though this wasn't the most hype match, even though the crowd wasn't particularly alive, this could have been a banger and there was definitely some hope. They went outside the ring, they were physical, they were going crazy, but less than 5 minutes into the match, the worst case scenario happened. Boom. The Undertaker, outside the ring just 5 minutes in, gets concussed. On the grandest stage of them all, 22 on the line, 49 years old, 70,000 people watching live, millions across the world, the dead man was out like a light. The Undertaker got concussed and it was a wrap. Brock Lesnar was in the ring with a man who wasn't even there, a man who to this day doesn't remember anything from this match, with a man on autopilot, and he had to put on a 25-minute wrestling match, which was also going to be one of the most important ones ever. The Undertaker for the first time looked mortal, he looked old, he looked dead, and after 21 matches at WrestleMania, it looked like Father Time had just caught up to him. The crowd just died. The crowd was not into the match whatsoever, and everything just fell apart. Taker was in there doing his best, but he had no clue where he was. It was just straight instincts. Lesnar was going savage mode and he did his best to make it look legit, but nah, this just looked ugly and it was not pretty at all. I remember watching and just sitting there with my friends on my phone. I was at the movie theater watching this with at least 100 other fans, and most of the people in the auditorium were on their phones during the match. Every time they did a finisher, nobody got excited, nobody cared, because we knew it wasn't ending that fast. This was a streak match, okay? For God's sake, yo, Taker had to go airborne, he still had to do like 5 tombstones. Yo, it's a streak match. Maybe Lesnar might even do the shooting star press again. The expectations were so high, and we knew from the first minute that even if Taker didn't get concussed, this was never going to capture the magic of a streak match. And we knew that no matter what, Taker was gonna win, so what was the point? The minutes just kept going and going. Poor Taker was dying and dying, and it was bad. And eventually it just hit us. I mean, this match isn't just bad, it isn't just boring and dead. Taker might actually just be too old for this. It slowly started hitting us that all those classics, that everything that made the streak so special had finally caught up to the dead man. It had been 20 minutes and it was the longest 20 minutes of an Undertaker match in decades. Finishers were being hit, but it did not matter. Taker was loopy, he was gone, he was taking damage that no person with a concussion should ever take. Brock Lesnar could have hit him with 20 F5s, brought a hammer and bashed his brains in, and we still would have been like, alright, it's fine, Taker's gonna come back and beat him. Brock Lesnar could have brought a gun to that match and we still would have thought the streak was not gonna end. After 23 minutes, the Undertaker finally hit Brock Lesnar with a tombstone. It had been 23 minutes and finally we got the tombstone, and everyone was just there like, all right, can we please just end this and move on and just worry about next year? 1, 2, no. And it wasn't even like, oh my god, he kicked out. It was like, oh my god, they're still gonna keep going. Taker went for another tombstone, and Lesnar, like the freak of nature that he is, he rolled through it and put the Undertaker on his shoulders like it was nothing. Straight dead weight on his shoulders, literally, and boom, he hit the third F5 of the match, and the crowd went absolutely mild, because once again, there was no way in hell there was a higher chance of the world ending than Taker not kicking out. Brock Lesnar went for the pin after the third F5. 90% of the fans were still seated. 1, 2, 3. The video says it all. 21-1 on a night that nobody expected, on a night where the threat of the streak ending legit seemed impossible. 22 years of history, 22 years of build, our childhood, your childhood, your fucking older brother's childhood, all those classic matches, all those moments. The fucking streak, the most special thing in wrestling, was dead. And The Undertaker laid there at 49 years old, a broken down old man, concussed with no idea where he was. And ladies and gentlemen, this was the most shocking moment in wrestling history. The crowd just let out a huge gasp, the fans looked like they had seen a ghost, and even the ring announcer didn't know what to say. Even the music production truck didn't even know when to play Lesnar's music. We just sat there and we saw something die that we thought never was gonna die. It was so shocking and so unexpected, it seemed like it was a mistake. I will never forget sitting there and thinking they just messed it up. I thought something happened. I thought maybe The Undertaker messed up and he just got knocked out. I genuinely thought it was a mistake. And I will never forget the referee's hand hitting the mat for the third time and my brain actually freezing and tripping up because I saw a visual that I never thought I would ever see. Taker at Mania down for the count. 1, 2, 3. Fans tripping, everyone tripping. It had to be a mistake, right? Why? What? Who? Why now? Why ever? When you least expected it, just when you thought you were safe, they hit you with the wildest plot twist of all time. 22 plus years in the making, and it ended on this night. 21-1, and whether you love it or you hate it, one of the greatest moments of all time. A moment that made you feel something watching wrestling that can never ever be replicated ever again. I remember fans screaming in the movie theater when it hit 3. I remember my mouth just being open in shock. We had really thought that 1, the streak was never gonna end, and 2, if it was ever gonna end, not to Lesnar, right? Not on this night, right? But it did. And whether this made you mad or angry or however you feel about it, it's hard to say that this wasn't the right move, because at the end of the day, it's moments like this that fans crave. These are once in a lifetime moments. Brock Lesnar walked out with a smile on his face and he had conquered the streak. After all those classic matches, it ended with The Undertaker laying in the ring, not knowing where he was. This shit was a Shakespearean tragedy. The magnitude of this can never ever be replicated. Groups can disband, faces can be squashed, but this, generational. Undertaker slowly walked out and fans around the world were hit with emotions that they had never felt watching wrestling. Taker had a concussion and went straight to the hospital right after. He to this day does not remember anything from this match. Vince actually left and went to the hospital with him and even rode in the ambulance. And coming into Mania, The Undertaker thought he was going to win. When he walked into the Superdome that day, he still thought he was walking out 22-0 until that very afternoon when Vince changed his mind. Undertaker later said in an interview, obviously in Vince's mindset, if it's not Brock, then who? And to this day, we don't truly know why Vince made the call, and we probably will never know exactly why he did it. All we can do is speculate. Maybe he saw that Taker was too old and he couldn't carry the burden of the streak matches anymore. Maybe it was to maximize attention to the network that had just launched and to do something crazy so we can get a bunch of replays and new signups. Maybe it was as simple as it's time for Brock Lesnar to carry us once again, and maybe it was just a combination for all three. Over the years, there had been so many discussions on wrestlers who could have broke the streak. Back in 05, before the streak was even truly a thing, Taker wanted Randy to do it. Taker even wanted Angle to do it in 06. Even Edge was once upon a time thought to maybe end the streak, but it wasn't meant to be. And on April 6, 2014, only 6 people knew that that was a night the streak was ending. Vince, Triple H, Steph, Lesnar, Taker, and Heyman, the best kept secret, and led to one of the most craziest surreal endings to a wrestling match ever. And it worked out perfectly. Looking back at the streak, you just had to have been there. The streak was special, and I'm so glad I was old enough to watch it and truly appreciate it as a kid. I'm so glad I was able to watch it all the way from 04 to 2014 every single year, and I can only imagine how special it was for fans who've been watching since the 90s. It's been 8 years since the streak ended, and the craziest part is there are wrestling fans out there right now who weren't even alive, or some fans who just weren't watching when the streak was alive. They didn't get to witness the spectacle, they didn't get to feel the emotions, but for those of us who did, we were there at the perfect time, and it's impossible to explain how special the streak truly was, and honestly how special The Undertaker was. A lot of the fan base hoped that The Undertaker would ride into the sunset with the legend intact, maybe 23-0, maybe 25-0, or honestly looking back at it, maybe even 21-0 was fine. But one thing we learned is, just like the movies, not everything has a happy ending, especially wrestling. So I leave you with one question. Should this streak have ended? Let me know down below. As much as it hurt and as sad as it was and as double-minded as I am, I think I do lean towards saying it was the right call. But a part of me does wish Taker had just beaten Lesnar and retired that very night and retired 22-0. But at the same time, you need moments like this. What a time it was to be alive. Truly a once-in-a-lifetime moment. It's your boy Pav, aka Wrestling Gifts. Thank you guys for watching and supporting. I'm out of here. I'll see you guys very soon.